me if you want to live.
Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
Zip, don't get scared.
We like to make a nice, sloppy podcast.
No, listen. They don't come here for that, Jason. They come here for raw, visceral entertainment from my mouth to their ears. When I speak to these people, I don't just speak to them. I make love to them, Jason, okay? And that's what we're going to do today with the best movies of 1999 or other movies from 1999 that we feel like talking about. And this is a long overdue podcast I've been waiting years to make. I know you have. And in my opinion, 1999 was the best last year for films. And it was 20 years ago. And it makes me feel sad thinking about it. Society peaked too soon in 1999.
Well, it's interesting you say that because obviously one of the films, perhaps the top film on the list, it could be argued, is The Matrix. I'm sure it's on both of our lists.
It is. We can start with The Matrix.
Well, I was going to say, in the movie The Matrix, they pick what they consider to be the pinnacle of human existence, the society, and that society is 1999.
That's very true. That is very interesting. They predicted the future.
It's 90s tech. It's 90s. It's pre-Twitter. It's pre-smartphones. It's pre-YouTube. And presumably, I would think, okay, this being a science fiction film, they looked at the era that we live in now, and they were like, nah, it's no good. People were miserable. People were too unhappy. We got to go back to 1999. We'll set their lives in that year or that time period, and they'll be happier.
Don't you wish we lived in the Matrix and we could just live in 1999 forever?
I do.
That'd be awesome. I would love that. That actually, I want to go there. I told you the other day, I said, why aren't you into virtual reality? It seems like you would live inside of a virtual reality headset all day.
Well, I don't know if you didn't exactly tell me that. You left me a voicemail. It was a little snarky, I have to say. It was you were saying I should just go and live my life inside of virtual reality. that I should live on the Enterprise, basically, because I'm a Star Trek nerd. Well, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree. It makes me. It hurts my ego a little bit to insinuate that would be my life's ambition now, is just to give up and go live in virtual reality. But I can't argue with the fact that I've always fantasized about living on the Enterprise. So if I could live a life on the Starship Enterprise, I probably would.
It's either that or you want to live 25 feet underground in a bunker eating beanie weenies all day. But let's circle back to The Matrix before we get off topic for 6 hours.
That's why your job is so important, because you keep us on point.
I do, man. Now listen, when it comes to The Matrix, I hate the sequels. I absolutely hate both sequels. Both films, when I saw them in theaters, I actually fell asleep or left. But when it comes to the first film, I think it was so revolutionary. And I never got to see this movie in theaters back in 1999. I don't know what I was doing. I was in I think I was in 5th grade. And I remember watching it on VHS.
Oh, you're older than that. Come on.
No, I 99, April of 99. I'm pretty sure I was in 5th grade.
They must have held you back a couple of years.
Yeah, I was 12 years old. I went to reading readiness, which was an extra year, but
it was definitely. I did see it in the theater, and I wasn't expecting much. I was going in thinking, what was that movie? It wasn't Constantine. It was a movie he made like a couple of years before The Matrix.
Like Johnny Mnemonic or...
Johnny Mnemonic, I think that was it. That was such an awful movie, man.
Yeah.
And I was going in and I was like expecting something along those lines, and I was just completely blown away. And the more I went to see it again and again. I don't know how many times I saw it in the theater, probably 4 or 5 times, but and then thinking about it, thinking about the fact, because this is also the same year, it's crazy, 1999, man. The same year that Star Wars: The Phantom Menace came out, which is the one that everybody was waiting for. And yet The Matrix was really the sci-fi movie that was the revolutionary movie of its time, not Star Wars. Even though Star Wars, it did further technology, but so did the Matrix, and the Matrix had more of a cultural impact. And so for a lot of people, that was their Star Wars.
And the best movie the Wachowskis ever directed by far.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it has to be that way, then I wouldn't feel too bad if it was me.
Yeah, I loved it. Speaking of Phantom Menace, I have a movie confession for you, Jason.
Oh,
My movie confession. May I confess my sins, Father?
confess your sins to me, my son.
The Phantom Menace is the first ever Star Wars movie I remember watching, and I watched it in the theater. And at the time, I was very jealous of Jake Lloyd because he got to race a speed race or a pod racer, and I thought he was really cool, and I was very jealous of that.
Okay, my son, I want you to say one Hail Mary and jump off the tallest building you can find.
Can I please say 2 metachlorians instead?
You may say nothing.
Now
you
listen,
may drive your car into a tree going 80 miles an hour.
can I drive my pod racer into a tree? Now listen,
No. So you are basically,
I was new to Star Wars. And now listen, I think over the years I had seen maybe a Star Wars movie or two growing up, but I didn't recall the details. And then I watched Phantom Menace, and as a kid, I didn't hate it. I mean, I was only 12 years old, and I thought it was mildly entertaining.
Well,
but I knew.
I know kids aren't going to. It was made for kids. I mean,
Well, it was made to sell fucking toys, but
yeah, and I mean that was always one of the big arguments. It was like, well, the original Star Wars was made for kids, and it's like, how do you argue with that? Yeah, you're right, but the kids that grew up on the original Star Wars became adults.
yeah. What did you think the first time you saw it in the theater? What did you think? How were you immediate?
It was a big deal for me. I mean, I was a much bigger Star Wars fan then than I am now. Now I don't care. I've gotten rid of pretty much all of the only thing I've kept is like a little R2-D2. I've gotten rid of everything. It's just I just really don't care anymore because of what they've turned it into. But going back to 1999. Oh, I did the whole camping out.
Did you?
Dude, we were out there. I mean, I think we arrived at like 7:00 at night, with a cooler and blanket, and I mean, there were people out there having, lightsaber duels. People who were dressed up. We waited all night long, man, and then it was in the morning, and it was so hot. It was in the middle of the summer. And we waited in line to get those tickets, and then we went to see the movie. And this is pretty much the effect that it had on almost everyone. Anyone who was older than anyone who was old enough to where Star Wars was a part of their childhood. And then this was the long-awaited return of George Lucas in a new Star Wars movie. It was such a huge deal for the Star Wars kids, the ones who grew up, who were part of that generation. And when we walked out of the theater, it was like, that was good. Yeah, right? Yeah. That was great, right? Of course it was great. It was a Star Wars movie. And I think it took a good 6 months to realize, yeah, that wasn't really at all what any of us were expecting or wanting or hoping for. So, yeah, it was a big disappointment for me.
Well, when you go into a Star Wars movie, you want to watch the Senate discuss politics with, boring shots of their faces back and forth for 8-minute segments throughout the movie, right? That's what kids want in a Star Wars movie, politics.
You want to hear about trade routes?
Trade routes and metachlorians, and but even as a kid, I will say this: even as a kid, I've always had a good sixth sense. I can always even when I had a dumb little mushy kid brain, I could always pinpoint something was off in movies. And I remember even from Batman and Robin, I always knew Mr. Freeze. It was wrong. I knew
it was wrong.
yeah, I knew Jar Jar Binks. I knew it was wrong. I knew something was wrong there.
A sin had been committed.
Yes, I could sense it. I could sense it deep in my little kid core. All right, so let's speaking of Star Wars and family films, let's talk about American Beauty.
Sure.
That's
a great family film, especially one of the early scenes when he's staying in the shower doing something and explaining to the audience that that's the best part of his day.
Well, yeah, he wakes up and jerks off in the shower. And listen, we can't really talk too much about Kevin Spacey in society anymore for his run.
Oh, right, yes.
But it is a great film, and I've said this once and I'll say it again. I feel like in my bones, one day I will be living his life that he lived in American Beauty. To an extent.
You have said that quite a number of times. You basically said that's where you want to be when you're 42, and I don't understand why you'd want to be in that position.
Listen, Jason, I don't want to. I just know I'm going to be. Now, in all fairness, here's really all I want to happen. I do want to start working out naked in the garage in my 40s.
Yeah, and buy an old, what is that car he buys?
Like a
classic
Firebird or a
car.
Trans Am or something.
It's all the stuff he wanted when he was a teenager, basically, working at the fast food restaurant. You
know who I can see you as in that movie?
No. It better not be Scott Cooper, the next door neighbor. No, thank you.
I could see you as that kid who has like the 800 videotapes, and you like to go out and record bags flying around in alleyways in black and white. I could see that.
Not only bags, but like creepy videos of people who don't know they're being recorded.
Hey, it's all that voyeurism, isn't it?
A voyeur, and I have all the tapes meticulously labeled.
But that movie does have a lot of great like dark comedy undertones that are hidden throughout the film, and I love that. I love the little subtleties in that movie. It's just something that has always like resonated with me.
Yeah, it holds up. I mean, it holds up for me. I know a lot of people feel that it's dated, but
I disagree with that.
I remember seeing the trailer for it in the theater, and I was like, man, that trailer. If you go back and watch that trailer, I just remember the trailer just blew me away. I was like, wow, this is going to be something special.
Yeah, I like the scene where he's telling the next door neighbor kid, he's like, that whole summer I flipped burgers just for a 8-track tape player, and he's like, oh, that sucks. He's like, no, actually it was the best job I ever had. And it kind of reminds me of when I used to deliver pizzas. It's like, oh no, that was everyone would think that sucked, but no, it's really the best job I ever had.
And now your job is YouTube, and you wish you were delivering pizzas again? Get the fuck out of here.
No, man, it was, how fun it is to deliver pizzas. It's like every day's an adventure.
It's a rush. You never know where you're going or who you're going to run into, or
you're going to get shot or stabbed.
Exactly. You know what? People complain about going to the bad areas. I loved it because you got that visceral thrill.
Oh, I don't get that on YouTube. I get no human interaction. I need to go out into the field, man. I need to go into the jungle. Into
the field.
Tiger needs to hunt.
You need to live in Predator and the Predator.
All right. Another movie on my list is it's a movie that we don't talk about. The first rule is we don't talk about it, Jason.
The second rule is we don't talk about it.
And the third rule is we do just for the podcast. It's a Fight Club, man. I think this might be in my top 2 favorite Fincher flicks. And another, the reason I love this film is because I relate to the character of Edward Norton to a certain extent. All that, I love his little rants about consumerism.
Mm. Well, I could see you sitting around going through an IKEA catalog and feeling the need to buy, the matching living room suite and all that stuff that he does.
Yeah, I did that I did that a few weeks ago. I was buying a new desk and I thought, what does this say about me as a man?
Also, you bought that couch, which I thought was you spent way too much money on that.
No,
Come on, what are you spending that much money on a couch?
It wasn't that much how much a couch costs, man.
I know couches are expensive.
Dude,
but
if you're listen,
if you went to IKEA, you wouldn't have spent that much.
if I went to IKEA, I'd be sitting on a little thing. It'd be like milk cartons covered in fabric, and it'd break down after 2 months, and I'd sit there all ramrod straight, uncomfortable.
You'd feel cool sitting on it, though. You'd be
listen,
like, yeah, I'm sitting on a Swedish couch.
Yeah, there's some things in life you don't go cheap on, right? And it's the things that you use every day. So if you're going to sit on a couch to watch movies and you spend probably 80% of your home life on that couch, you get a good couch.
You know what? I can't disagree with you there. If you're spending 80% of your life on something, then yeah, it should be $1,000.
All right. What's a movie on your list?
Let's see. Well, we've already done The Matrix. Did we do Fight? Was that Fight Club?
Was Fight Club? Yeah.
Okay. We can't do a 4-hour podcast. Listen, I just want to point out, we just talked for 2.5 minutes about Fight Club, but really, essentially, we just talked about a couch.
That's fine.
But what a cultural impact Fight Club had. I mean, I'm just want to throw that out there.
We don't have to break down the cast and crew of every single movie we talk about, along with the synopsis. It's just some quick. I
want to point out. All right, look, Eyes Wide Shut. That's on my list. The thing I want to point out. I don't want to go into a lot of detail and stuff, but the fact that Eyes Wide Shut. Okay, the last movie by Stanley Kubrick. We didn't know it was his last. Well, actually, we did because he died before it actually came out in theater.
Take it off. Take it off.
Of all the characters that we've talked about so far, I could see you as Tom Cruise in this movie.
Yeah.
Wandering the streets of New York,
all scared, not knowing what to do, and
and then winding up at that house with the mask on.
But yet it's shot like a stage play, or it's oddly shot.
Well, for one thing, all the streets of New York, those were all sets.
Yeah, and they look like it too.
Yeah, well, it adds to the surrealism of it. But anyway, the thing I want to point out is Eyes Wide Shut, Stanley Kubrick, came out in 1999. Yeah. Bringing Out the Dead, Martin Scorsese, came out in 1999. Fight Club, with what's his face,
David Fincher.
David Fincher, yeah. But so, as far as Eyes Wide Shut and Bringing Out the Dead, and then there was another movie that came out in 1999 by a long-standing, respected director. Well, The Straight Story, which we're going to talk about in a little while, that was David Lynch, came out in 1999. So you had a lot of like up-and-coming new directors that are now like, Academy Award favorites or popular directors. And these were a lot of their breakout movies came out in 1999. And then you had you had Kubrick and you had Scorsese putting out movies in 99. Eyes Wide Shut was one of those movies I didn't watch until maybe 2000 and, maybe like 2010. That was the first time I ever fully watched Eyes Wide Shut. And I would say it's probably one of my least favorite Kubrick films. I agree. There's a lot of people that actually rate it higher than that. But yeah, I agree. It's one of his lesser movies.
I just don't understand. I get why is this the story that he wanted to tell? I didn't. I was like, out of everything you could do and everything you have done, why is this what we're doing?
He found it interesting.
I guess he did. The one I want to talk about is on a lighter note, without Tom Cruise getting naked in front of people with masks on, is Office Space.
That's also on my list.
A comedy that was ahead of its time, also directed by Mike Judge, who was the creator of Beavis and Butthead. And man, you know what's funny? The thing about that movie is it's still funny 20 years later. It does comedy bits that other films couldn't make as comedic.
It absolutely holds up. It hasn't aged from. I mean, technology and everything doesn't matter. But and the music so hilarious.
Oh, fuck yes, yeah.
But
when he's the opening scene where he's cruising down the freeway and he's
he
listening
turns
to like
his music down,
hardcore gangster rap and sees
Yeah.
the dude walking down the street and locks his doors.
and turns the music down.
And
then as soon as the guy passes, he turns it back up.
Yeah, there is something I took from that movie. It was sort of like an outlook on life, a motto, if you will. It's a scene where he says, "I'm not going to work anymore." Oh, so you're quitting your job? No, I'm just not going to go. And I've used that for many jobs over the years. You don't quit. Just don't
go.
Yeah,
and just stop paying your bills. I don't want to pay my bills anymore. I don't think I'm gonna.
I've done that a few times. Eventually, you know the thing about paying your bills, man. It's like they expect you to go out of your way to pay them, but eventually they will put a notice on your door with a phone number, and it's like, oh, now it's time to pay them. Thank you for the direct notice. It makes me feel like more obliged to pay them.
They will let you know when it's time.
Yeah,
they will let you know. All right, look, if you can pay this amount of money, call this number and pay it, or you will no longer have electricity, and you have a choice to make. Yeah. Do I want electricity? I pay this amount.
And they only do that once every 3 months. So rather than go out of your way once a month, just do it every 3 months. It's so much easier.
And back then it was a lot harder too, because you had to mail in checks.
Yeah,
you had to write a check and mail it in.
But anymore, I like how this is a podcast about 1999 movies, and we're talking about paying our water bill. But I can't ever remember my password to log in to pay any of my bills online. That alone is more hassle than mailing in the check.
Can I say? I'm sorry. My brain. You forgive me. I'm elderly. Yeah. I did want to throw this out here before I forget, though, that my favorite scene in the movie is when they steal the copier machine and take it out into a field and destroy it. I like how angry they are. I like how angry the one guy gets that he's hitting it with his fist, and the other two have to pull him away.
I imagine
it's so relatable, though. It's so relatable. I think that's the main thing about that movie is how relatable everything is. Getting angry at inanimate objects.
Yeah,
or personally out to get you.
Or wearing 32 pieces of flair, and the fucking manager comes up to her and he's like, you do want to express yourself, don't you?
And that was Mike Judge who played the manager.
Yeah, it was great. It was so great.
32 pieces is the bare minimum.
And that's okay if you want to do that. But here, tchotchkes.
Tchotchkes. Oh, it's great. I want to go to tchotchkes.
I do too. But first, we're gonna go somewhere a little bit more dark, a little bit more creepy, and oh god, I don't know.
Take me there. Take me. Ready? I think I know where we're going.
What it do? Did you get you off or something? Huh? What? Huh? The next movie we're gonna talk about is 8mm, starring Nicolas Cage.
Oh, I didn't. You know what? I should have known you were going to put that on your list. Actually, I did. When I was scrolling through all the movies, I came across it, and I was like, I know he's going to put that on his list. But I honestly, I saw it in the theater when it came out. Yeah. But that's the last time I've seen it. I know you love it. I know that it's...
Dude. I like movies. I love movies that take me to a seedy, dark, disgusting place. And when I watch movies like 8mm, I get the urge to wash my fucking hands afterwards because it's so disgusting. But the truth is, the scariest thing about movies like this is happening all around you in society. That's the truth.
Well, when that movie came out, access to the internet. I mean, you had internet, but it was primarily message boards,
Yeah.
And then people would have like private websites, and you could go to different places and find information. But
what are you getting at here?
I'm getting what I'm getting at, John. If you want to find a snuff film, it's out there, and it's a lot easier to find than it was in 1999.
You should be for Halloween. You should be Machine. Wear the leather get mask, man. No. That's a great movie, and it has.
But at the time, it was like, nah, nobody makes snuff films. They don't exist.
Yeah, but really, it's all based on facts. An old man who he has all this money, he can have whatever he wants. It has a young Joaquin Phoenix in the movie. Plays a really good supporting role.
As the X-rated video clerk.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great, man. Now he's Joker, but I love that film. I remember watching that for the first time on like VHS, and I don't even know why we had the movie or where it came from, but for some odd reason that movie was in a box in our.
It's just lying around for kids to get their hands on and watch.
Yeah, and I watched it back in sometime in '99, and I don't know, it just blew me away. I always thought it was one of the better overlooked Nicolas Cage movies, and it's directed by Joel Schumacher.
It's the best movie that guy ever made.
I honestly, I would agree with that.
You know what? Do you know if it's streaming on anything? Because I'm in the mood to watch it again now.
Yeah. Well, last time I checked, it was on that. It's on Crackle. If you guys want to watch it on Crackle, which is a free to download app,
and it makes it even junkier because you have to watch ads with it.
Yeah,
so that makes it feel even.
There's a scene where someone gets butchered, and then there's an ad for Mountain Dew afterwards. So, all right. So, what's the next movie on your list, Jason?
Let's see. What do we want to talk about? Let's keep it dark. You want to keep going with the dark?
For the next one, then we got to lighten it up because I'm getting scared.
Okay. Well, I think you know the next one on my list.
Oh, I really don't. Tell me.
Boys Don't Cry.
Oh, here we go. I've known Jason for a long time, and it's always the Boys Don't Cry. Jason likes movies that take place in little small towns and low income families and crime, and just tell me everything about the movie that you want to say.
And if it's set in Texas, that's just even more of a bonus. I like little stories.
Landscapes.
Yeah.
It seems like a movie that would be in like Oklahoma or Kansas. Definitely somewhere in the mid west. But is that actually a Texas movie?
Well, it's Nebraska and
Okay.
Texas both.
Okay.
Oh man, I love that movie.
Yeah.
How do I count the ways? I mean, I love the style. I love the cinematography. I love the music that's in it. Just everything about it is so well done. And it's just one of those movies that I love to watch late at night by myself. Now, admittedly, this is based on a true story, and it has a very tragic ending. Which,
Yeah.
So, I tend to sort of cut it short. It's one of those movies that it's good to go to sleep to. You don't really want to see the end.
No one's ever said that about that movie. No one's ever said that. I go to sleep, the boys don't cry. It just comforts me. It's a good family film. We all get together and.
Yeah, the goal is to fall asleep before the end happens, because it gets really horrible at the end, and it's not fun to watch.
You kind of would prefer if all the characters halfway through the movie just got along and then started like watching movies together in their living room. Like that that's the movie you want. You don't need the dark.
I don't ever want these movies to take a dark turn. It's like a lot of horror movies that I like. I love them because of the atmosphere and the setting. And then when they take the dark turn, I'm like, no, totally. I would be like, oh, it's Tina Brandon. You deceived us, and you're really, you're a man on the inside. We accept you in this backwards place, and we're all going to be good. We're going to sit on the couch, and we're gonna watch TV and drink beer, and
we're not going to murder you violently at the end of the movie.
Oh God!
All right, so let's lighten up the tone for a minute here, and I'm going to talk about a movie where I don't want it for legal purposes. I can never admit this, that it may have creatively influenced me, maybe. It's the film Election, and there's a little tagline in the movie by Tracy Flick, who's running.
Oh yeah, you completely ripped that off.
Yeah, she's running for school president, high school president or whatever, and her tagline is "Pick Flick." So I channel the Flick pick, maybe a little bit of an influence. That's all I'm going to say for legal purposes.
You even blatantly ripped off the color, that yellow color.
No, I've always been a fan of yellow, man. I always thought yellow goes with movies. I think popcorn. I think yellow. I think movies.
Okay. All right. Well, that's something about you that I just now learned. I never knew that before. I never knew what your obsession with yellow was.
Yeah, it's a good color, man. It's a good, bright, happy color.
Yeah. Would you buy a yellow car?
Only if it transformed into a robot named Bumblebee.
No.
You'd buy a yellow car and be called a school bus.
You'd ride on one. It'd be rather short.
Well, you'd live in one.
I would. I'd be like Christopher McCandless at the end of Into the Wild.
Or Gary
Living
Busey in Black Sheep.
Oh, wow. What an obscure,
Yeah. But
very obscure reference.
Yeah. But back to Election, man. That's definitely a very underrated movie starring Matthew Broderick. And it's one of those films that's really just, it is kind of atmospheric because it does take place in like Nebraska. And it's kind of just a small town guy going through like his little struggles of life. And I love his internal thought process. I love films where you get the main character and you get to hear all of their thoughts in their head and how much they just hate everyone. And that's what you get with the film Election. It's phenomenal.
The main takeaway for me is how he squatted in that tub.
Yeah, to wash his balls.
In the hotel to wash his genitals. Yeah,
Yeah, I love it, man.
it's great. Also, again, 1999, and this is a breakout movie for Alexander Payne, who would go on to make, plenty of other acclaimed movies like Sideways but yeah.
What's another one on your list? We'll just go back and forth. You do one, I do one.
Okay. Okay. The Iron Giant. We don't really have to go into detail about this. I just wanted to point out that's my personal favorite animated film of all time. I'm not a big fan of animated films. And this is my personal favorite animated film, and it came out in 1999. So there you go.
I always liked the Iron Giant. I think they may or may not be doing a live action version of the Iron Giant.
Just leave it be.
Yeah,
leave it alone.
Leave it alone. Did you see Ready Player One?
No, it looked like it would just suck what little bit of soul I have left out of my body.
It sucked my soul out, but they have a big Iron Giant cameo in the movie.
No, I think that was in the trailer, actually.
Yeah. All the good parts were. Speaking of animated movies, another one for me is Toy Story 2. And we talked about this on the previous episode of the podcast a few weeks back, but originally the concept behind Toy Story 2 was to release it straight to a home video, and then they looked at it and thought, hey, this is too good for that. So
that blows my mind. Now, did they make that decision after they filmed it or before they
I believe what happened was it was before that.
Okay, because there's no, I just can't imagine looking at the animation that they would be like, oh.
Yeah. No, I think it was the script phase. They looked at it like that.
Okay, so the story was too good for.
Yeah, the story and the anime, and then once they decided, they upped it all and made it. But man, Toy Story 2, talk about a sequel that, in some ways, is a lot more deep and moving than the original in some ways.
No, they got more mature as they went along.
Yeah, they really did. All right, your turn.
Let's see. The Straight Story, which is really, really up there for that year. For me personally, on my list, I tried to put a mix of movies that were the most popular, but also had the biggest influence on movies or had the biggest cultural impact. I tried to mix movies like that with personal favorites like Boys Don't Cry and this next movie, The Straight Story.
I never watched Straight Story, but I'm looking at an old man on a lawnmower.
Basically, Richard Farnsworth, he plays this old man who lives with his daughter, played by Sissy Spacek, and he finds out that his brother, who lives far away, I can't remember, in another state, whatever, it has a terrible illness, and so he and his brother had a falling out. We don't really know what it was about,
Sure.
And they haven't spoken in many years. Well, he can't drive a car. So he decides to drive the little lawnmower cross country. So it's like this road trip where this old man's driving this lawnmower to see his old sort of dying brother, played by why is the name escaping me? Because he just died like last year. Harry Dean Stanton. He just has a little role at the end playing his brother. But it's a good movie, man. It's very simple. It's one of those movies that's simple. You would never think that David Lynch directed it. It is the most,
it's a very straight story, right?
Yeah, it's a very straightforward story. I sort of
want to watch it now.
It's a good movie, man.
I've never seen it. So it reminds me, during my childhood, I lived in a small town in Ohio called Van Wert. And there was an old man who lived on the corner. He had all this junk in his front yard, right? His name was Jim Bowersock. This guy used to ride a lawnmower all around town up to the convenience store and back. And this reminds me of Jim Bowersock. So,
Jim Bowersock. That sounds like a Stephen King character's name.
Old
Jim Bowersock.
He's mean to dogs. I am.
Dies a gruesome death.
Yeah, we need to make a movie about Jim Bowersock one day. But yeah, I'm intrigued by this movie now. You might have sold me on a movie to watch at some point.
Yeah, I love the cinematography. I love the score. And it's definitely the most accessible, by far, David Lynch movie.
Well, my next pick is going to be, and we're going to go quick on a few of these, but I got a few comedies on mine, and I like feel-good movies. I like movies, like we always say, movies you can just turn on Netflix late at night, you watch it, you fall asleep. It's relaxing, it's comforting. And American Pie, man, that movie at the time, everyone talked about, that was the talk about that. It's like, it's almost X-rated, and as a little kid, you go into the American Pie, you get to see boobies and all kinds of fun things, and a guy fucking a pie. And I don't know about you, Jason, but that opened up my imagination as a prepubescent teen for years.
Well, it's crazy because I remember when that movie came out. I remember it was like the big thing, that go see him. Everybody's going to see American Pie. It's hilarious. It's great. And it makes me think, how do they fit all of these great movies into this one year? Where
just every week a new one came out.
Huge events, you know what I mean? I mean, how did you have so many movies that either were huge events or they were spread word of mouth, like Fight Club or The Matrix, or
the thing is, dude, these are all movies that people still talk about, they still reference, and they still resonate in pop culture. And what's the last movie of 2019 that you're going to remember 2 years from now, or ever reference it, or ever pull a quote from that movie?
I don't know. Hopefully it'll be, I don't know. It remains to be seen. There's always a little bit of hope for maybe Joker or something. I don't know.
Something maybe a Tarantino's movie in a few months. All right.
Yeah.
That's what's your next pick?
Oh, that was brief. Yeah. Let's see here. Let me. We already talked about American Beauty. Talked about that. Talked about that.
Oh, that's right, what we want to hear. Yeah. we want to hear you crossing out your list.
Well, I mean, I think there were some things that you said early on in this podcast that they probably didn't want to hear. I won't bring it back up, though.
There's been a lot of things we both said they didn't want to hear. We talked about paying the water bill for 7 minutes.
I'm sure they didn't want to. Yeah, our discussion of these movies are.
This is real life.
It's not traditional. Yeah.
No, who wants it? I don't want to read off IMDb's credits and factoids.
In fact, I'm going to.
The editor of this movie had a tough time in 1999 putting it together for the VHS release, which was later released on a special edition in 2003. Like, no one gives a shit about that. Come on, tell me your.
That's what you want. That's what you want to. You make a video essay for that.
Yeah. All right. So, what's your next movie?
Ride with the Devil. I know you probably haven't seen it, and a lot of people haven't, but I just think it's an underrated movie. It was directed by Ang Lee. It's a Civil War set movie, and it's quite good. And that's about all I want to say about it. Do you have any more on your list? Because there's something I want to get to here.
Oh, Tobey Maguire. Okay. Yeah. I have three or four movies. Yeah.
3 or 4 more movies. Wow. I made 10 out of all these incredible movies, and you've got 3 or 4 more to talk about.
Yeah, I got 3 or 4.
Okay.
We can go over them kind of quick if you want.
Well, yay.
Yeah.
It's your show, man.
All right.
You set the pace.
You just buckle up, sit tight, and go for a ride. All right. The next 2 kind of fall in the exact same category of films, and we can just talk about them both at the same time. They're kind of big budget popcorn fluff, blah, and it's Deep Blue Sea and The Mummy.
Yeah. You know what? I was looking at Deep Blue Sea, and I did want to mention that came out that year. It's kind of crazy that it's been that long since it came out. But
my head is like a shark fin. LL Cool J's.
Yeah, it appears you know it a little bit more. The thing I remember about LL Cool J is he was wading through the water in like the kitchen. Yeah. And the shark was swimming through that area.
Yeah.
I remember that, but I haven't seen that movie since I saw it in the theater.
Well, you need to go back and watch it one of these rainy nights when you're trying to fall asleep. It's fun.
I remember even back then the CG was horrible.
Oh, it's horrible, but you know, it has a great death scene where Samuel Jackson gets eaten by a shark after giving a great speech.
Is that the movie that sort of gave birth, at least in a spiritual sense, to all of the horrendous made for sci-fi channel shark movies?
It just might be. It just might be. I people like sharks. I don't know what it is. Something about sharks. People just love watching these.
I love sharks.
Naturalistic hunter killers that live in the sea.
I was excited by the idea of the Meg.
Yeah. Do you ever just look at a shark and you think, like, that actually exists? We didn't make that up. We didn't just make that up for some scary movie. That fucking thing is in the ocean right now.
That's why I don't go in the ocean anymore.
Yeah, that's why you don't go outside.
No, there's all kinds of prehistoric things out there.
Then, like the other one I said, it was The Mummy. Fun, big action B-rate movie. I remember seeing it in theaters. It's still a fun time. I still watch it occasionally, probably once every couple of years. And,
yeah, the main takeaway from that for me was it was a lot of fun. It's pretty much the definition of a popcorn movie.
It really is.
But my takeaway was it was fun and I enjoyed it. But I had seen Raiders when I was a little kid. I'd seen the Indiana Jones movie, so I knew what they were going for. So it may have sort of, it was like a.
You saw the better,
yeah, I saw that aspect.
You saw the better version already, so.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Of course, it didn't have the didn't have all of the Egyptian.
No, and that's shit. I like pyramids and Egyptians and shitty CG effects. All right. Now I have 2 movies. Do you have any other movies to talk about?
Man, I've got a lot of movies, but I tried to pare it down to 10 because I thought that's what we were doing.
Do you have one more you want to include?
I mean, what shall I include? Austin Powers, the Spy Who Shagged Me. When you think about that. That came out. All right. Also, we were just talking about what? We were just talking about American Pie.
Yeah.
Austin Powers came out the same year. Huge impact. Everybody was going around quoting Austin Powers, talking in a fake British accent.
They were. Yeah. And then we got three more sequels after that.
Yeah, but that was the original. And also Galaxy Quest came out that year, which. Great sci-fi comedy movie.
I get why you love it, and I get why people love it. I never loved it. I always was like, I don't mind watching it, but I'd rather watch Office Space or something.
Well, here's a movie that I'm sure you loved when it came out, Tarzan, because you were a little child.
Oh, animated Disney. That's another. I was 12 years old. I wasn't a 9-year-old little I was I never liked Tarzan. I thought that was one of the weakest Disney animated films.
Well, here's a movie that I could imagine you being in. Yeah. Cruel Intentions.
Ooh, yes. Cruel Intentions, man. That's some weird, sexy stuff going down in that movie. Sarah Michelle Gellar in prime.
Yeah, in her prime.
Coke.
Yeah. You think about all these young actors that are just Ryan Felipe and Well, Reese Witherspoon is still doing really
Yeah.
well today. But here's another movie that I think we would talk about how me and you would be in this movie, The Talented Mr. Ripley.
Oh man, I don't remember a lot about that actually.
Yeah, me neither.
What about
now I know.
what?
I would love
Okay.
to make a bet with you
Okay.
that one of the remaining. How many more do you have on your list?
I just have 2 more I can mention.
I'd be willing to bet you that one of those is Varsity Blues.
It is indeed.
I
One
knew
of them
it.
is Varsity Blues, man.
I knew it, and that brings us to this episode's confessional.
Oh, yes. Confess to me, my son.
Father, I must confess to you, even though it will offend you deeply, that I have yet never seen Varsity Blues.
Son.
Even though it's the kind of movie that I would enjoy, it's set in Texas,
yeah.
right? I mean,
son, take a football and throw it at your father's face.
Well, my father's dead, so I guess I could dig up his grave and throw it at his skeleton head and watch it shatter.
Oh man. Okay.
But to keep it on a lighter note,
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, you can't. All right.
hey, Never Been Kissed came out that year too, man.
Never
That was kind of a big movie for Drew Barrymore.
Yeah, you need to watch Varsity. you need to watch Varsity Blues. This is not your life. It's when James Vanderbeek thought he was going to have a career, and that never panned out. But it's a really good movie. I think you'd enjoy it, man. A lot of good times in that movie.
It's one of those movies that I've always meant to see. And I mean, if it was streaming and I came across it, I would totally watch it. But I just
yeah.
Can
I was actually I have one more movie on my list.
Okay,
Oh,
but
by the way,
before we get to that,
speaking of Varsity Blues, I wanted to tell you, Jason. Did you know? That's
the same story as Friday Night Lights, right? Am I mistaken, or is it?
It's small Texas town football. Varsity Blues is a little more fun until you get to the John Voight coaching scenes, and John Voight's always just creepy as shit. But I wanted to say, did you know I got to interview Allie Larder back in 2014?
Allie Larder, it's not ringing a bell.
She was it's that real famous scene in Varsity Blues where the chick walks out in a whipped cream bikini.
Again, man, I haven't seen the movie, and
well, Google Allie Larder Varsity Blues whipped cream bikini.
Do I have to do it right now?
Yes, you do.
Oh man, come on! Why? This better be leading to something really good.
This is the research.
The research during the podcast. They're really enjoying this. Okay.
Yeah. So
I think Google is suppressing my search.
Yeah. The child safety features.
Yeah. Nothing is. It's not child safety features. It's 1984.
Well, I got to interview her, and it was so hard for me not to mention to that scene that I used to watch that over and over as a teenager.
Okay, there's a 2-second clip.
Well, you just look at an image on Google Images. You don't.
Okay, but I'm just letting you know that so-called that scene that you watched that you're.
Well,
it's so smitten with is only 2 seconds long.
It's longer than 2 seconds. The whole scene's a few minutes.
Oh wait. Okay, there's a 2-shot of them. Okay.
Yeah.
So what sort of 2019 appropriate comment did you want me to make about this image?
I just wanted you to know that that's when you idolize that as a young man and you get to meet that girl one day. It's a surreal moment.
And why were you idolizing this woman, John? Was it her acting abilities? Was it her intelligence? What exactly about her did you idolize?
It was mostly the cherries.
Now,
And
the
whipped
cherry,
cream.
yeah, I have to say the cherries do have a good placement.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
anyway, the last movie on my list is it's actually a movie I watched the other day on Amazon Prime. Really good coming to age film. I like time period movies, and it was October Sky.
Oh man, I scrolled past that when I was doing my research.
Yeah.
Uh, that's one that actually slipped past me. I didn't see it in the theater. I didn't see it until a few years later on DVD, and man, I love it. I love it. It's exactly my kind of movie. It's got that small town, coal miner setting, but it also has a smidge, not just a smidge. It's got more than a smidge. It's got a good dose of that '80s feel good type movie that we weren't getting anymore.
I could see that. Yeah, I could see that. It does when you go back and rewatch it. It does have a little bit of a corniness to it, but I liked it. I liked that corniness that it brought and the simplicity of it. And no, it's just I like movies about kids just hanging out, and shooting rockets or walking down train tracks or playing baseball. And that's it's kind of the vibe that October Sky gives you.
Especially when they have a hard ass dad who just wants you to go down into the mines
Get
and
black lung like he gets.
yeah, have a short life,
Yeah.
hard Scrabble life.
That's
Yeah,
what I
thanks,
do,
Dad.
Homer. Yeah, it's good enough for me. It's good enough for you.
Homer.
Yeah, his name's Homer.
Truly one of the greatest names in cinematic history.
Well, based on a true story.
That's true. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It was,
But
man.
1999, man, that was a magical year.
Yeah, it was. So anyway, guys, that's our movies of 1999. As always, leave your thoughts, your opinions here in the comments. Let us know some of your favorite movies from 99. But as always, thank you, Jason, for sharing your in-depth pseudo-intellectual thoughts with us.
You're very welcome. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys, and I will see you guys next time.